Back here on the ALC Sidelines podcast, we have put a fin on the season. The end has come, and we, ladies and gentlemen, have a champion, and a champion, and another champion. 3 championships given to the Atlantic Lacrosse Conference this year, 2 in conference, and 1 national championship. Amazing job, and obviously we'd be remiss if we didn't start with the national championship run for the Liberty Flames, winning 19 games, losing just 1, and capturing a national title, a historic year, their first ever national title for Liberty. And just on the route to that, happened to also win the ALC championship at the ALC tournament, which was presented by Jamerson Lewis Construction. What a great tournament in Lynchburg. Another good tournament in Round Rock in its final year there. Well, it'll move to the Commonwealth of Virginia next year. But Liberty, 19-1, an incredible season. Obviously, with National Players of the Year and Keaton Mose winning it, and just an incredible season for that team from start to finish. Really, kind of basically without the first blip. Obviously, we talked about that with Virginia Tech earlier in the season, if you can go back and watch that episode from that point on. And that was it for losses for the Liberty Flames. So congratulations to them on an incredible, incredible season, both as a conference and national champion, representing the ALC very well in Round Rock. Our other champion, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, end up winning a conference tournament, in Division II, in a lot of surprise. We were not expecting that, but hey, surprises happen in every corner sometimes. And Wake Forest dug the deepest with an excellent defensive performance. Shout out to Andrew King, who was the player of the tournament there. A defensive midfielder does not usually win player of the tournament, but he was absolutely outstanding for Wake Forest in their championship game against Virginia Tech in their semifinal against UNC Wilmington. What an incredible season for the Demon Deacons as they get to a national tournament for the first time. They bowed out in the first round of the national tournament, but still an incredible, incredible season with players like Jack Church. Coach Brett Hewitt has to be super, super proud of the Demon Deacons. So a huge congratulations to them from our Sideline podcast crew. We're going to mention to you the Players of the Year for the ALC in both Division I and Division II, and run you down the All-Americans from this past season. Offensive Player of the Year, who else? Keaton Mose, 129 points with an incredible season, record-breaking season for his career. Liberty's Keaton Mose is the Offensive Player of the Year. We had a co-Defensive Player of the Year. Both Virginia Tech's Patrick Droney and Liberty's Connor Giltonen end up being Defensive Players of the Year in both of their respective teams. Specialist of the Year, Caleb Hammett, the Drip King from Liberty, is our Specialist Player of the Year. And also congratulations to him on getting a training camp roster spot with the Boston Cannons, if only for a few days. But that was a pretty incredible thing to see. Rookie of the Year, Jack Wonder from Clemson was our Rookie of the Year. An incredible freshman campaign. Had a great, great run for the Tigers, getting all the way to Lynchburg this year as a 3 seed. So upsetting some people on the way. And then a Coach of the Year, Kyle McQuillan, in his 15th season, capturing a national title for the Liberty Flames, is our Division I Coach of the Year. In Division II, our Offensive Player of the Year, Tyler Nichols, who we had on the program earlier this season, the new all-time leading points getter in Charlotte history, is our Player of the Year. Jack Church, our Defensive Player of the Year, who we will get a chance to talk to later in this program as we tell you who we got on the show today. Ryan Parody from UNC Charlotte is the Specialist Player of the Year as well. Rookie of the Year, Danny McGann from Virginia Tech's Division II team. A huge congratulations to Danny and an unreal run for such a young team, getting all the way to the championship game and pulling off a massive upset over Charlotte in the ALC semifinals, maybe even the highlight of the tournament with that win. And then our Coach of the Year, Liam O'Halloran from Charlotte. Another incredible season for the 49ers as they did get an at-large bid to Round Rock this year as well. So we had a ton going into the tournament and naming of accolades and this, that, and the other. We weren't done. After the MCLA tournament was over, we had a ton of All-Americans, Division I level All-Americans. The Liberty Flames were represented very highly in this. Count them, 4 Division I first-team All-American. Keaton Mose, National Player of the Year. Braden Landry, who was second in points in the MCLA this season. We'll get a chance to talk to him as well coming up in a few minutes. Connor Giltonen on defense, also for the Liberty Flames. And then, of course, Caleb Hammett at faceoff dot. All first-team All-Americans. Second-team All-Americans include Alex Ashley, the midfielder for Virginia Tech. An incredible year for one of the Ashley twins. Alex had, from start to finish, really an excellent year for him. Third team, Tommy Guys from Tennessee, another team that made it to the national tournament and gave the national runner-ups, Georgia Tech, a pretty good scare in the first round, bowing out in a double overtime thriller. Ian Jackson, the midfielder from Clemson, an incredible year for him as well. He gets third-team All-American. Ryan Gaffney, short-stick D-mid, was a third-team All-American out of Virginia Tech. And Patrick Droney, defenseman, was third-team All-American as well for Virginia Tech. And some honorable mentions as well. Mason Kane, another great ALC tournament for Mason Kane. He has just been one of the stars for Tennessee the last couple of years. He gets an honorable mention. Cal Ware from Virginia Tech, who we had on as an LSM earlier this season, was an honorable mention. Peyton Park, the LSM from Liberty, also a honorable mention All-American. For the second year in a row, Ben Chun is a All-American defenseman from Liberty, and then Clemson's Will Leonard getting the nod as a honorable mention defenseman for the Tigers. The Division II level, we had a couple of third-teamers from Charlotte. Tyler Nichols, the attackman, getting a third-team All-American. Ryan Parody at the faceoff dot as well. And Owen Schaefer, who we know didn't play in the ALC tournament, but still that good enough where he was able to get a third-team All-American nod. So congratulations to him. We also had Ryan Kazella from UNC Wilmington, the attackman, was an honorable mention All-American. Josh Sweetenberg, the midfielder from UNC Charlotte as well, a honorable mention All-American. UNC Wilmington's Justin Duran, midfielder, honorable mention All-American. Andrew King, unbelievable, like we said, the player of the ALC tournament, was an honorable mention All-American at short stick D-mid. Austin Tingen from UNC Wilmington was a defenseman that was an honorable mention All-American. And the brick wall in Winston-Salem, Jack Church, our defensive player of the year in the ALC, was an honorable mention All-American out of Wake Forest. So congratulations to all of our All-Americans this year. It was an incredible year for so many, and we are so proud of every single one of them here at the ALC Sidelines podcast. We're going to dive deep with our champions today. We have got from Liberty University, attackman Braden Landry is going to join us, talk about their run all the way to a national title and how it came to fruition. And then we're going to talk to a couple of Demon Deacons, Wake Forest, Logan Reynolds, and Jack Church join us, talk about their run to an ALC title and a chance that they got to spend some time in Texas, their first ever trip to the MCLA tournament. All that and more coming up next on the ALC Sidelines podcast. We are now joined by one of the first-team All-American recipients and now newly crowned national champion, and that is attackman Braden Landry from Liberty University, who joins us now on the ALC Sidelines podcast via from Colorado, all the way back home in Aurora. So it's good to see you back, man, and an incredible run. Could you imagine, 40 days ago, you guys are getting ready for an ALC tournament? Not even sure who you're going to play yet. Just watching a lot of games and trying to figure out, okay, we know we have the 1 seed here, but how can we lock the 1 seed in all the way through, and trying to see position polling and this and that. And now 40 days later, you're back home in Colorado wearing a national championship hat. What kind of whirlwind has this last month and a half been like for you?
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. We were watching, we kind of knew we were going to have the 1 seed for the ALC tournament weren't sure how the other, side of the conference was going to shake up. So we weren't really sure who we were playing, first game. And then VT ends up losing to Clemson. It was like, okay, well, now we have, Clemson to prepare for and just, and then, we knew probably Tennessee was going to come out of the other side. So it was just a matter of, we had already seen them during the midnight game, which was super fun. And then, yeah, play ALC tournament. And then, 5 days later, we're on a plane to Texas getting ready to, take on, and then I guess we knew pretty quickly after the ALC what our first round matchup would be in Texas. But yeah, play that whole week. And then, a day after the championship, half the guys, some of the guys didn't even come home with us to Lynchburg after we won because, they're already halfway home to California or wherever. So, it's pretty crazy how quickly it all goes by. The whole week you're in Texas, you're preparing each game and then it's over and then, guys are gone. And it's like, wow, it flies by so quickly. So, yeah, it's good to kind of settle down and sort of rehash, kind of look through everything. And I watched the games a couple of days ago just to kind of get a second look at it. And so that was kind of nice to do as well.
You're pretty good at dissecting your games and seeing what to improve on and what you've done well and what to build on. What was it that you guys found late in the season that kind of clicked that made you think, okay, if we just play, we just go out there and play, nobody's going to be able to beat us. And ultimately that ended up being the case, going 19-1. But what do you think the key was to not just the offense, but the team at large in going on this unbelievable ride?
I think it was understanding that we sort of had an advantage almost in every part of the field. Especially towards the end of the stretch, our D middies were playing extremely well. And so it was like, all right, those guys are playing good too. Like we feel, our offense was clicking. We have, 6 or 7 guys that can get to the rack at any time, can score at any time. So, it feels like, all right, if we're going to put up 18 goals, and it's hard to look at the rest of the MCLA and figure out, especially in the ALC, it's like, all right, well, who else is going to score 18 when we're putting up 18 too? So it's sort of a track mean, when we take off so quickly and having, dominant face-off guy helps a ton. And then, our defense, it's like, they knew their kind of goal was, hey, we're going to keep guys under 10 because we know that the offense is going to put up more than 10. And, it's sort of a numbers game at that point. And, but I really think our offense was able to, when you have so many looks, you can kind of rep out and practice, and get a ton of reps, especially in games too, with a bunch of different depth guys. And so it helps a ton to be able to have so many possessions in game time because you can get those game looks and then get to the tournament. You already feel like you've seen a lot of what people can throw at you. So
just the sheer numbers. I mean, when you've gone back and kind of looked at it and, put some stuff out on social media and just looking at the numbers from the offensive standpoint, 3 guys, the starting attack line, 318 points. I mean, that's bonkers numbers to do that. 2 guys at over 110. I mean, when you hear that, are you like, dang, we scored a lot of goals? Or is it just, this is what happens when you put in the hard work and dedication and we just did what we did. But like, that's a lot from an attack line.
I think it's, I don't want to say like I sort of called it at the beginning of the season. The very first week of practice, we set our season goals for the year, and it's like, how many goals are we going to try to get each game? So we have targets for each game. It's like, all right, goals we're going to score, goals allowed, ride percentage, clearing percentage, ground ball percentage, like all those different stats in a game, and we have targets for each game, and then whether we did that or not. And at the beginning of the season, they're like, all right, well, how many goals are we going to try to score? And, last year, I think our number was maybe 12 or 13. And I was sitting there, I'm like, all right, well, we have, a D1 faceoff guy coming in. Last year in the ALC tournament, we had, 18 goals, and we, had, maybe 20% of the possessions off the faceoff. And it's like, I yelled out, I was like 18, and everybody, kind of starts laughing at me. And I'm like, I'm looking at what we have from last year. All 6 starters returned on offense. Now we're going to get an extra 20, 30 possessions a game. It's like, it's hard for me to believe that we're not going to be able to put up, 15, 16 goals a game. And then, come to find out in the tournament, we end up getting like 18 point something. And it's like, all right, well, at the beginning of the season, my number was 18. And I think, eventually they sort of bumped me down. I think our goal was maybe 14, 15, which we held pretty strong through the whole season. But it's like we get to the tournament when it matters. And all of a sudden at the beginning of the season, I'm like, hey, we're scoring 18 goals a game. That's what we end up doing. So I think it's cool from that perspective, just seeing the confidence I had in our offense going into the year and then seeing at the end of the year, okay, like we actually did what we were supposed to do. So it's pretty encouraging seeing that and seeing all the different guys that were able to get involved. And I don't know what the final number was, but going into ALC, I think our D middies and poles had like 50 points combined. And it's like when you have production coming even from those guys too, I'm curious what the final number would be, but um, it helps a ton when you have those guys pushing in transition and, any pole that comes over, it's like we feel like we can toss him the ball and if I throw it to Peyton Park, I know he's going to put it in the back of the net. So it makes it pretty easy to score that many when you have 20 guys in the field that can kind of score. So, yeah.
Starting from the beginning of the year and going into that Virginia Tech game, and you've probably heard this over and over, is like after that game, talking to Kyle McQuillan so many times that we have, he's just saying our guys had an opportunity to either put their tail between their legs or punch back. The punch maybe didn't happen necessarily right away, but it happened. It snowballed. There's no question into what ended up being. So from that point on, what was the point in the season where it just bang, it clicked? Is now our offense is really, it's going to be hard for anybody to stop us.
I think it was after the South Carolina game, those first three games, VT, NC State, South Carolina, it was like, all right, we're still trying to find our footing, like trying to get into the rhythm. We have guys that we're adding to the offense because we had a couple of freshmen that came in that weren't really sure how they were going to help out. We had some injuries at the beginning of the season. So it was kind of, okay, what kind of a team are we? And then we played Georgia Tech in Texas in that, back to back, that like 7 p.m. and then 11 a.m. game, which was just crazy. But I think once we played those two teams and, I think coming out at the half against Georgia Tech, it was like 2 or 3 goal lead. And then within 5 minutes, we were up by, it was like 10-3 or something. And so after that, those two games, especially because we're like, all right, well, these are, two top five teams, extremely good. We put up 14 or 15 goals on each of them. Like that's sort of when we was like, all right, well, we are, I think, who we believe we are. We are a top five team. Now we've, proven it. And then from that point on, it was sort of every game we were just trying to prove who we were. And so, but yeah, I would say, that once we played that doubleheader against GT in Texas, like after that, I think we really felt that we had an extremely dominant team. And then, sort of was able to just carry that momentum throughout the year.
Now going into the national tournament, I mean, you know, there's got to be some confidence there. The number one team, you hadn't lost since February, and however, it's been the last 2 years. It's been the last 2 years, and a lot of it had to do with having Caleb on the team. That was part of the reason why he was brought in, right, to get over that hump. But you still have to get over that hump, and you go out and you beat Minnesota. You have a wonky first quarter, but you end up dominating, and then Arizona State dominating for most of the game, a vast majority of the game. Going into BYU, I mean, was there? Did you sense a little bit more nerve in that, or was that nerve more excitement, if there was any?
I think it was sort of, I would say a little nerve, but it was more just like we didn't really know who they were. Like they, most of their games had been against West Coast teams, and we didn't really have good comps with them. So it's like, they play the RMLC teams, and it's like those conference games you really can't judge, um, just because of the way conference stuff works. Rivalry games or rivalry games, it's really hard to judge how teams do against them. And so it was really like, they didn't lose that many people from the year before, and then it seems like they just weren't as good of a team. So we didn't really know what we were going to expect and then sort of how we were going to react. And but once we got into the game and, I don't remember what it was. I think we went up maybe one or two at the beginning or I think because I rewatched it, I think they had to call a timeout, maybe within the first 5 minutes of the game or so. I was like, all right, well, we are the better team and now it's just a matter of getting through this game. But I think at the beginning, once we were able to get one or two in, especially on the offensive side, it was like, okay, yeah, we're going to be scoring goals. And so as long as we can, keep the possession. And then, I think that confidence, I think, just bled through the rest of the game. And then it was just a matter of, sort of finishing it out. But
And then the championship game, you kind of end up saving your best for last. 5 goal performance in that game. Um, just what clicked in that game in particular, because there was the weird weather delay, and then the game got to be late. It got to be a 1 goal game, and Georgia Tech kind of started coming back. What was the final push over the edge that got you guys to no, we're not giving this up here?
I think it was after the delay. We put a couple in, and then, or I don't remember. I think it was 9-8 at one point, and then I think Ian made a couple really good saves, and then I think we put in one or two, and then it was kind of like, all right, I think it was by the beginning of the fourth quarter. I was looking at the scoreboard, and I was like, they're not putting up 15. I was like, if we get to 15, they're not getting there, and so I think that was the confidence of, and Caleb was having a tough time with, his injury was, limiting him a little bit. Shane came in, and Shane was helping on the faceoffs too. So it's like, all right, well, if they're not going to have the faceoff advantage, I trust our defense that they're not going to let in 4 or 5 goals in a quarter. I don't even know if they did that the whole season where we let in, +6 in a quarter. So it's like, that's not going to happen. And I think our offense too is like, they're going to have to press out. And if they do, we're going to put them in. And I think that's what we had 3 or 4 goals in the last couple of minutes. So, there's only so much you can do when we have 6 or 7 guys that can score. So it was just a matter of, not really beating ourselves. I think that was the biggest thing is we knew, I think halfway through the season, I think we realized like the only team that's going to beat us is ourselves. Like we would have, we have to sort of not really throw away the game, but kind of get in our own way. And that's what's going to beat us because the other teams, they would have to play perfect and we would have to, make the mistakes and kind of, throw away the game. Whereas we didn't really do that. We had the confidence in ourselves and we knew that if it was just us that was going to beat ourselves, then, we had the confidence, especially in that even after the weather delay, we weren't really sure what was happening. Like we took a couple of their punches in that third. And then once the fourth quarter started, it felt like Ian was not going to let any in. The defense wasn't going to let any in. And then, we knew we were going to get a couple more goals. So, yeah.
And when the clock hit triple zeros, what emotions or thoughts kind of flooded to you, as you finally realized we finally did it?
I think it was, it's a feeling that you sort of dream of, growing up playing lacrosse. It's like that's sort of the moment that you want. And then, especially when that, you could kind of feel it in the fourth quarter. We started putting a few more in, and it's like, all right, well, it's coming. Like it's it's here, it's close. And then by the time it finally hits, you're just like run out on the field, and it's really hard to put into words sort of what you're thinking and what's going through your mind during that time. It's just like we finally did it, and then all that weight, sort of gets lifted off the shoulders a little bit. Now, what are they going to say now? That's sort of what happened last year with the Celtics. Like they get there 4 or 5 times and they, everybody's like, all right, well, when are they going to do it? And that's sort of how it felt like with us. It's like we kept knocking on the door and then you finally get it. It's like, all right, well, now they've proven that they can do it. And so that just having that lifted off your shoulders too, I think is a big thing for the confidence of the guys, especially going into next year. It's like, all right, now they know what it takes to be a championship team, and now they get to go and sort of try to redo that.
Right. And, just talking to people that are involved in the team, coaches, players, it is very difficult to get an answer to that question because there is not a lot of words to describe that feeling. And even talking to former champions on other podcasts, I've talked to other coaches that have won national championships, and it is a feeling of elation that it's very difficult to describe it. And, I just wonder, that Saturday night and enjoying that time that night in Austin as a team, are those, maybe the memories that you remember the most, or what will you remember the most about that week there?
Yeah, definitely the guys. And I think the way we ended it, the 2 years prior makes this one so much more meaningful because, the last 2 years you're leaving Texas with that, gut feeling, that terrible feeling. You're just like, we were so close. And then, we never could get past that Thursday game. So that Thursday, Friday, you're there after you lost. It's like, people are already figuring out what they're doing over the summer. Like, it's just a completely different mentality. And then this year you win it and you're just like, okay, well, it's, you kind of don't know what to do with yourself because it's like, wow, we actually did what we came to do. It's sort of surprising in a way. But yeah, I would say 100% what I'll remember is, even just the whole week being with the guys and seeing all the stuff we have to fight through, the injuries the guys are going through and seeing how they've overcome it. And, guys like Jason that, he was in the hospital after that Arizona State game because he got hit in the ribs and his kidney got it's like bruised, and so he's he could barely walk, and he's in the hospital for 2 days. And then seeing him at the Thursday game watching us was extremely awesome. And then Friday night before the game, because Peyton was supposed to come with us, and the doctors wouldn't let him. He was in his cast. He just had the surgery on his ankle. He got hurt in the VT game at the very beginning of the season, so he's been on the sideline the whole season and then was stuck in Lynchburg the whole week. We're at Nationals watching us online. And then Friday night, he comes into the hotel, waltzing in, and surprised all of us to be there for that Saturday game. And so just seeing the faces of the guys when they saw him walking in, it's like, okay, well, now everybody's here. And so I think that's the stuff I'll remember is seeing guys like that weren't able to do it on the field, but that were there with us and celebrating with us. It was just super cool to have them there and, being able to support us. So.
I
But
have
yeah, I think it just proves the friendship that the guys have on the team. Like, you know, so yeah, it's really awesome.
sure. I have to ask about two specific players. One is obvious, and maybe one is not so obvious. But the way these two players played in the tournament was a huge factor. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Keaton and his ability and what he did this year and how historic it was. Most goals in most points ever in a tournament, leading the team in points, 129 points, breaking the MCLA record of points in a career. The team record that stood for 26 years of goals in a tournament was broken, and he was kind of at the forefront and kind of the face of this program for a while. But to do that, and on top of it, you doing what you did when you had 110 points this season, I mean, it's very difficult to have one guy have 100, let alone two that went over 110. So, can you just talk about how maybe he raised his level of championship play in this tournament? Because he just seemed to be unstoppable throughout this tournament, and it led to guys like yourself and others having success as well. But can you just talk about him and his leadership?
I think he's one of those guys that is a competitor to the core. You talk about the great athletes that will go down, they'll die on the field. Keaton's one of those guys. And I think that mentality that he brings where he's not going to be denied, going to the rack, I think is just um, it's sort of unmatched. Like when you have a guy that has so much confidence in himself that he's going to, be able to score and make plays, I think it gives confidence to the rest of the team, but it also just opens up possibilities for everybody else, especially on the offense. And the leadership too of him, he was the last couple of years, he's, ended up how we were just like, well, we didn't reach our goal. And then going into the season, it was like, all right, well, both of us, this is our last chance. Like it's either championship or bust. And it's like, so I think it sort of puts pressure on you, but not really when it's like the expectation is that, we're going to go out there and perform. And I think, he's one of those guys that can answer the bell where it's like, hey, when it comes time, you need to put balls in the back of the net. He's going to step up and, so I think and I think his ability to take on, the best polls all season. And I think it lets other guys step in, lets me be able to play in sort of a different manner where I can, kind of feed off of his play style. And I think that's why we were able to be so successful is that we have so many different guys on the field that can do different things. Like it's really hard to sort of guard us one way because we have, you can try to throw a zone at us, but we have too many step down shooters. So the zone's not really going to work. You can try to play one-on-one, but if you slide too early to Keaton, we're going to beat you on the backside. If you don't slide, he's going to score. So it's like, it's incredibly difficult to prepare for teams like us when you have a guy that is that dominant, and then so many other supporting cast guys that are, so well rounded. And then just seeing, there were a couple of times that, because we were roommates this year, so him and I, spent every day together pretty much. And there was after the BYU goal, at the end, him and I had an embrace for a decent while, and it's just like we felt like we had it. And I think just the trust that we've built in each other over the last couple of years. He was the first guy that I really met when I came to Liberty, and so we've built a really great friendship, these last few years. And I think when you're athletes and you build such a big camaraderie, and then you actually are able to win, I think it just makes that friendship so much sweeter because it's like you actually succeeded in the thing you were going to do. Last couple of years, you lose, and then it's just like, you just have that weird feeling. And then this year you finally do it together, and it's like, it's hard to describe what it does, but I think it just makes that friendship so much sweeter when like what our goal at the beginning of the season was to win the championship, and then we actually do it. And it's like, hey, we said what we were going to do, and we did it, and so it's super awesome to see.
And just an incredible tandem, obviously, with what you were able to do, and then add another like 80 points with Luke Branham too is pretty incredible stuff there. But the other player I wanted to just ask you about and to comment on in their tournament, Ian Carvajal, who you had mentioned before, but this was a guy that came in his first year as a starter, as a sophomore, and was benched his first game of the year, and turned and parlayed that benching into one of the best goalie runs. And from what all I've heard from people that were observing the tournament is Liberty has everything, every advantage except that goaltender. That was the whole thing. And for him to do what he did and make some unbelievable clutch saves, can you just comment on that and give your thoughts about what he had to overcome?
Yeah, I think we weren't really sure how he was going to perform. We knew what we had in Rick last year. It was like, hey, he's a gamer. When it comes to game time, he's locked in. He's ready to go. And then Ian comes in, last year. Then with Ian starting this year, we weren't really sure what we were going to expect. And he had sort of a tough game against VT, but when you watch some of those goals, they were stinging corners the entire time. And so a lot of it, you can't really blame on him. It's like his first start, and VT's just pinging everything. And so it's a brutal way to, just sort of start the season. And then I think as the season got on, I think he built his confidence up, as each game went on. And then when we get to the tournament, especially in that last game, he made a few saves. There was one game, it was against South Carolina. There were two saves he had sort of towards the end of the game. There's a guy wide open with nobody in front of him, and Ian makes a cross crease save. Because when I saw the guy, wide open back door, I see the skip pass. I'm like, this is a goal. And then Ian gets there and makes a save. I was like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting that. And then, so when you make those sort of, it just builds confidence in the rest of the team when it's like, all right, if the goalie's hot, like, not much is going to stop us now. And, a lot of hockey teams will say that in the playoffs, like Stanley Cup playoffs, it usually goes to whoever the hottest goaltender is.
Right.
And when the goalies are Tim Thomas in 2011, like he was going to die before he let a puck in. And when you have, that just built, all the players from that year talk about how much confidence that gave them. And I think that was sort of what we had, especially towards those last few games. It's like, all right, if Ian's making those saves, like we're going to be fine. Like it builds some, when he has the confidence and he's locked in. And he is a very big mental guy, as most goalies are, but he just, I think once he was locked in, it's like, all right, well, it sort of relieves a lot of pressure of everybody else. Like a couple of goals that they had too, I can't remember which game it was. Like, Brody had his stick up and there's a pass and it deflects off him, it hits the ground and then it goes in. It's like, all right, if that's how they're scoring, like that's the only way they're going to get goals is these random, and so that confidence, I think it's hard to stress enough how much that gives the rest of the team.
Something I appreciate you and talking to you about is just your ability to connect other sports to what you're playing, and your ability to kind of detail and get into the minutia of what you're doing. You have a hockey background. You've compared kind of your game to soccer players and hockey players, and you watch a lot of kind of the almost a box style with which you play, right? I mean, a lot of off ball movement is your game. Where does that kind of obsession of certain details come from for you? Why do you love that so much?
Um, it's probably a combination of many things. I think I'm just an analytical person in general, so I'm like always trying to figure stuff out and relay um, stuff I'm seeing to other things, um, and I just love watching sports in general. And I think I can just see, I think there's a reason multi-sport athletes are better than single sport athletes is because they can use other skills and things they've learned from other sports and put them into lacrosse. And so I think that's a big thing, especially, you know, I know basketball players are really good. It's a good comp with lacrosse because of the way the offense moves. And
So true. It's so true. That's just like, and lacrosse in general, just taking those little pieces of the hockeys and the basketball on grass mentality and soccer and the physicality of the football and combining it into one. It's just what makes it so great. And kind of talked about that a little bit on the ALC broadcast about any sport that you play will help you be a better lacrosse player.
right.
And Coach Winters was talking about that on the broadcast that we did, and it's so true. You get tested against anything, and I just wonder for you, like, do you want to continue this? Do you want to maybe either coach or maybe give yourself a shot at playing in some other capacity beyond college, or do you think what's next for Braden Landry? I guess you would say.
I would consider coaching. I almost feel like I have too much, like, I guess, experience or knowledge to not share it. I spent 20 years playing the game, and it'd be hard to walk away from it and not give it to the next generation. So I'm sure I'll coach at some point wherever I end up. I probably won't stay in Colorado, but if I did, they have a great indoor box league here. It's a senior A, so there's guys. There's a lot of D1 players, a lot of club players, a couple guys that run the practice roster for the Mammoth. One of them is on the Mammoth. He was last year for sure. So like, it's a pretty good box league. They're reffed by the NLL refs, so it's like it's legit. So if I were to stay, I'd probably play in that just because it's a ton of fun, and you only, at least on the box, you only have to play offense, which is kind of nice. Don't have to play much defense. Um, but so I'll probably find a league somewhere, possibly. But I'm sort of going to transition more into running, especially long distance running. Dylan Bowman is a big trail runner right now, and he played lacrosse at CSU years ago. And now he's one of the most famous trail runners. And so I'll probably transition more into that. I think spending so much time with lacrosse, even this year, is a little bit like, all right, I think I've done all I can do, at least from a player standpoint. So I kind of want to move on and see what's next. So I'll probably coach. I think, my dad's been a coach for the last, however long. My dad actually coached the CSU coach when he was in high school. So
Okay.
Coach Mack is the head coach at CSU, and my dad was his high school freshman coach back, you know, way back when. And so there's cool connections like that, which is part of the reason I ended up at CSU in the first place. But I'll probably end up coaching. Just I think, especially there's so much in my like that I want to try out because I think, especially nowadays with sports in general, I think it's such a skill based. Like it's a lot of beat your guy one on one, and it feels like we're sort of losing the team and free play of it because so many people are specializing so early. Um, and so I would want to sort of experiment with a little more unsettled stuff, in a bigger picture with the team. Like just seeing, I think it just helps players develop. There's weird. I think when I was watching most of my goals back from the GT game, like none of them are real. You can't script them. One of them, goalie makes a save and it pops out, and then you have to, beat the guy to the ball. And so it's just, that irregular stuff, I think, isn't practiced enough. And so I think that's something where you have to be able to, like, with any sport, you can have a plan and then it's just not going to go the way you think it's going to go. Like, that's why sports are fun, is because you have no idea what you're going to expect. And so you sort of have to prepare for the unexpected and sort of prepare for the chaos. And I think that's why having such a deep background and everything else helps, is because it allows you to sort of read the chaos a little bit better. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'd love to coach, but yeah, I think, just have to figure out where I end up and then move on from there.
Sure. Well, hey, you'll have national champion on your resume wherever you do end up. So that is a huge thing. You took a risk, obviously, leaving Colorado State, coming to Liberty all the way across the country, and it certainly paid off. Did you do anything fun for yourself? Like, did you relax a little bit and enjoy championship? What did you do that was like, let's celebrate a little?
We I don't know. It was like we were kind of just waiting to see what would happen. Like, I think with the rain delay too, it kind of threw everybody off because a bunch of parents had their flights ready to go,
Yeah.
assuming the game was going to end when it was supposed to end. So with the delay pushing the game back a couple extra hours, like a bunch of people had to leave. So I think it sort of messed it up a little bit, and we're just able to still have some fun. And then yeah, I get home, and then it was sort of the next day, most of us were back to work. So it was like, all right, well, sort of move on and enjoy it a little bit. And I think it's been nice. The more you think about it, the more you rewatch it, and seeing some of the clips that have come out and the photos, and just being able to take it all in, I think is super helpful. And then um, it's hard to sort of put into words how you know you sort of play. I came here, the goal was to win a championship, and it's like, all right, everybody has that goal when they play sports. Like, you really don't play sports unless you want to win. But then when you actually do it, you don't really know what to do with yourself, because you're just like, all right, well, I understand now why Brady wanted to win more Super Bowls, because it's like, it felt like every time he did it, well, I could go get another one. And then,
Wasn't enough, right?
it's sort of that never ending cycle. But, now it's like, okay, well, what's next? The next steps that sort of, the team's already has to get ready for next year. They're not going to have Keaton or I. We're losing a couple other guys. Caleb won't be back. Connor won't be back. So I'm super excited to see how they'll look next year with a ton of the young guys being able to step up, and we'll see what freshmen come in. And so I'm super excited to see, because when you have a guy like Keaton in the offense for the last couple of years, you sort of have a style that you can play when you have a player like him. Now that he's gone, it's like, all right, well, who's going to step up and be the guy now? So I think that's super cool. We'll be able to see, Peyton will be back and healthy, and so I'm excited to see what he does. And we have guys like Brody now that hope Brody will probably end up leading the defense, and so I'm super excited to see how they do next year.
Well, hopefully you can enjoy like a tomahawk steak or a Denver steak maybe out there, and you'll never forget it. Obviously, it's one of those things you'll never forget. So we really appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit of the insight, and not just winning the national championship, the insight on how the team functioned this season. It was a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure getting to talk to you and go through the nitty gritty. And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, Braden Landry of Liberty Lacrosse joining us here on the ALC Sidelines podcast. All right, we told you they'd be here, and here they are. This is a smattering, I guess, of the 2025 ALC Division II champions, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. We say it's a little bit of smattering, but both of these guys had massive, massive impacts on not just their teams, but the MCLA at large in the Division II level. We are welcomed by leading scorer Logan Reynolds of the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, and not just one of the best goaltenders in the ALC, maybe one of the best in all the nation, the Defensive Player of the Year in Division II for Wake Forest, and a All-American honoree, an honorable mention All-American. That is Mr. Jack Church. Gentlemen, welcome in. It's good to see you as champions this year.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah, Jack, we'll start with you. I mean, this has got to be pretty cool, right? I mean, from that weekend in Lynchburg, if you put yourself back there for just a moment, working as hard as you did and kind of being a staple in the program, and Logan, you too, as well, for those many years. And it finally culminated and it finally got done all the way to the mountaintop in Lynchburg. When that clock hit 000, when you guys walked off and you beat Virginia Tech, what was that like for you emotionally?
Yeah, I mean, that was an awesome weekend altogether. You said that we had been in that spot a couple times in the years prior, so to kind of turn it around and end up on top this year was awesome. And I think one of the coolest parts, like as soon as we got off the field, like our phones were kind of blowing up from the alumni who were in our shoes, just before us. So hearing them and just seeing how excited they were made it even more worth it.
Yeah, Logan, for you, same thing. I mean, this is a program that has been around, for a long, long time, and going back to early SELC days and all those things. And a bunch of guys, I'm sure, were very excited to hear that Wake Forest was winning a title. I mean, it was huge. So, what was your reaction to kind of finally getting over the hump?
I think the cool thing was just how, starting from my freshman year, we've been able to take just one more step every year. Starting with my freshman year, we go out in the semis. Sophomore year, we make it to the championship, but get bounced. And then this junior year, we're finally able like to get it done and bring it home. So I think just seeing the progression of this program throughout every year has been awesome to kind of play through. And especially seeing like getting the text from alumni of like Ethan Haas, Dakin Moore, both the presidents before church, of just like, congrats, boys. It's definitely a surreal feeling to have and just like see it all kind of come together.
That's so cool to hear. And one of the other things is that you guys did this with defense. And Logan, you were the leading scorer on the team, but this team was the number one team in the ALC in goals allowed per game. And it was kind of a staple. And, we talked to Coach Hewitt about that in our pregame, pre-production meetings about the tournament, what was going to happen. And he kind of mentioned, like, we're going to lean on that and play at our pace and take our shots when we did and let the other team make mistakes. Going into that game, was there, obviously maybe you thought you might be playing somebody else in Charlotte, right, and kind of getting that revenge, but knowing it was Virginia Tech and kind of going into that game on Sunday, what was your guys' mentality? What was kind of the points of emphasis that you had, and then how did those end up ultimately coming to fruition and getting executed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was anything crazy new on that Sunday. We kind of just wanted to rely on what we've been doing all season. I in terms of the defense, like I always felt so confident and comfortable with the guys in front of me. Like Grayson Soper would probably take someone's head off if I asked him to. So having those guys in front of me always sort of gave me more composure, and I think that was sort of our game plan, just to do what we've been doing all season long. Don't change, don't make any crazy changes, and get as many stops as possible, and then give the ball to Logan and let him put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, kind of building off what Church said, I feel like the our team just has so much depth at defense. Stephen James was out that championship game, but just having guys that are able to fill in behind him, like Evan Shavitz got in there and played phenomenal that game. I mean, he was a real trooper. He's awesome to watch.
Right, right. And it's funny, we talked to Coach before that game, and he said, it took a little time for that defense to gel because you had so many guys like Steve James and Soper and Graham Whaley and Will O'Neill and guys like that, he kind of mentioned, he's like, in the beginning of the year, we didn't really play as a unit, and as we move forward, we kind of started to gel and play for each other instead of trying to play individual. Would you agree, Jack, with that it took some time for that defensive unit to come together, or did it kind of start good and just kind of kept progressing?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with Coach. It took a little bit of time, which I think is natural. Um, you know, at Wake, like kids go abroad, and we had some transfers. So come springtime, even though we'd already been there for a full semester, like there was definitely some new faces on the field. So I think, understandably so, it took a little bit of time to gel together. But that was, one of my favorite parts of the season was watching that come together right in front of our eyes. Like by the end of the season, we were going through four, sometimes even five guys at close D with no hesitation, and being able to rely on those guys in huge moments, even deep into that tournament run was awesome, and I think a huge part of what we were able to make happen.
When did you, and Logan, I guess I'll ask you this question: when did you kind of figure out, hey, we could really win this whole thing if we just put it all together this weekend? I mean, you had that big long stretch of winning, right? You guys went on a tear, and then that last game of the year, it's Charlotte. It's putting yourself against the champs. It's a big kind of bar-setting game, and you go out and you lose. What was what did you guys go into the tournament still having that confidence, if you're being honest with yourself?
Yeah, I think our big takeaway from that Charlotte game was the day as a whole. Starting off and playing Kennesaw right before that. I mean, it was a pretty hot day. We were missing a couple of our guys down in Charlotte. And I think coming out with the win against Kennesaw, being a little bit shorthanded and having some guys injured in that, the rest of the day we were just kind of focused on let's go out there, give it all. And I think our big takeaway from that day was just being proud of everyone for kind of showing up, playing 100%, and just like didn't get the result that we wanted in the Charlotte game, but we're proud of the way that everyone played given the circumstances. And we were just super excited to get after it championship weekend with a full roster.
So then you play UNC Wilmington in the semifinal. Still, pretty confident going into that game. You get it done, and I think a lot of people were expecting that kind of a result, if we're being honest. And then a surprise that you don't have to play Charlotte again, and you play Virginia Tech. Did that kind of not be disappointing to you, but did it throw you for a wow? Like, all right, we really got a shot, to win this, or wow, okay, I guess it's not going to be. Maybe maybe you're preparing for something else, but now have to deal with something whole different. What was the dynamic for that?
I think like our mindset didn't really change all that much. We were just excited to get out there on Sunday, no matter who we were playing. Like personally, I definitely started to think back to the last time we played Virginia Tech. Like I'm pretty sure that was like a 9-9 game going into the fourth. Mm-hmm. So that was a great game, and we knew we were going to get their best, especially after they had such a big win that Saturday. So yeah, I mean our preparation didn't change a whole lot. We were just really excited to have one more day together, and we were really stoked that morning.
Yeah, and a big game from a couple of guys, Bryce Devlin, Logan, yourself having a goal there, and Andrew King. I mean, can we talk about him? I mean, he was just outstanding at D mid, having a couple goals there. I mean, that guy is if being on the broadcast, just watching him, we just kept, man, that is somebody I would never want to play against. Talk about him and what he brought to the table and raising the bar for championship weekend.
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud. Like I'll speak about him on the defensive side, but like we'll put him up against any one of their top midfielders. Doesn't matter that he's a short stick. And then he's our clear essentially. Right. So give him the ball and you just feel so comfortable when the ball's in his stick. And then every once in a while he'll just surprise you and go split down the alley and score. So he really can do it all, and he's an awesome guy to have around, in the locker and just when we're hanging out together.
Yeah, he really is one of those guys that's going to give it his all, like all the time. Like in that Kennesaw Charlotte weekend, he was probably on the field for 120 minutes. Still going 100% in the fourth quarter of that Charlotte game. It was unreal to watch. Very emotional player. It's awesome playing with him.
And he's kind of got this Mr. Do Everything mentality, whatever he's willing to do. And you guys have been at the forefront of this program for a while now. Jack for 4 years, Logan for 3. But, what makes playing lacrosse there at Winston-Salem? You could say it's club and this, that, and the other, but now that you've won a title, it does give you some type of different cachet, in saying to recruits or people that want to go to Wake Forest that want to play lacrosse and say, hey, how would you sell me on playing lacrosse at Wake Forest?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it comes down to like the balance that our team has. Like it's such a blast. It's a great group of guys. We take it serious on the field, but at the same time, we like to just roll the balls out. Practice is a lot of up and down, transition play, a lot of West Jenny. So it's just like a great time. I look forward to every time we get to go play together, and I think that's kind of what characterizes like the culture of our team. And then, like you said, having now this ALC championship under our belt definitely kind of raises the standard. I think it, like Logan mentioned it earlier, but one of the coolest things was just to see like each year after year, the program got a little more serious and kids were a little more dedicated. And I think we're going to continue to see that as time goes on. And I think, I'm personally excited to hop on the live stream and watch these guys play next year for sure.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome. And neither of you are from this area. And there's a lot of guys not from North Carolina on this team. you're from New York, like in the city area, right, Jack? And then Logan, you're like Chicago area, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, like just north of Chicago.
So can you both kind of talk about your journeys? And Logan, I guess we could start with you. Is like, how does a boy from Chicago end up playing club lacrosse at Wake Forest? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I guess I kind of was, I mean, I think a lot of the kids on our team were all kind of looking at playing Division 3 lacrosse. And then it's like at one point you're kind of like, I don't really know if this is like for me. I don't really know if I want to kind of devote my entire college career to this. And so it kind of came down to that. And then it was actually kind of like, I mean, I was kind of at a point of like, oh crap, I got to figure out where I'm going to school. And then my dad was like, come on, like I'll take you down. We can look at the school in North Carolina, Wake Forest, like pretty good academic school. So like we can go look at like there, Washington and Lee, Virginia, a couple others. And it was like I visited the campus at Wake Forest. And then it was like I got home and it was like 2 weeks later, I applied early decision there, got accepted a month later. So it was a pretty easy decision for me to end up at Wake. I just kind of fell in love with the campus and everything it had to offer.
What hooked you about the campus? About obviously having the ability to play there, but what hooked you that you were like, I'm in.
I think some of the big things were it being a Power Five school, and then at the time we did have Sam Parkman as quarterback, who was the man. He was
Yeah.
awesome. So part of that, and then I also wanted a very small campus, and Wake is like it's all enclosed, which is awesome. So everything's super close to each other, super walkable. So I think that was another big part of it. And then on top of that, the campus is stunning. It's all the buildings are awesome. It's really pretty.
Outstanding campus, one of the prettiest in the country. Jack, for you, I mean, you're from New York. You did you spend some time? I believe, if I read it right, you were spending some time in Connecticut playing lacrosse too. Um, if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But you have kind of have spent some time in some of the more prep league up there. Um, then it comes to Wake Forest. Was there it's kind of the same deal where there was some D3 aspirations, but ultimately ended up in North Carolina, or how did you end up there?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, born and raised in New York City, and then went to boarding school for my high school experience up in Connecticut, which was an awesome time. And then yeah, kind of like Logan, started to look at schools um, down south, the southeast, and kind of settle in Wake. Just a really friendly atmosphere. Really enjoyed the people that I encountered when I toured. And then after the whole application process, ended up there as soon as I got to campus, kind of found out about club lacrosse and everything it entailed. And then I remember going out for the first practice and like it was an awesome time to meet some of the older guys and like immediately made friends on the team. Coach Hewitt kind of set the standard for just like, hey, we're gonna come out here, we're gonna take it serious when we put our cleats on, but at the end of the day, we're just having fun together. I think, like I said earlier, that's one of the things that the program kind of prides itself on. And yeah, I mean that was 4 years ago now, so it was an awesome time and definitely like a huge component of my college career that I'll always look back on with a lot of gratitude.
Sure. With a name like Church, I'm sure you treat the crease as a holy place for you. So I just wonder, what was your lacrosse background back in New York and in Connecticut when you played, and was it always goalie? Because anytime I've ever met any goalies and talked to them, they just have a couple of screws loose. They just do to take that many shots. So what was kind of your background there?
Yeah. So started playing lacrosse pretty much as early as I can remember. Um, my dad played goalie growing up, so felt kind of like a natural move to pick up the goalie stick and hop in net. And I was probably around first grade or so, and took it from there and ran. And then kept that going through high school. And then similar, like I said, similar experience to Logan. Kind of started to look at schools just for like the academic side of things, and landed on Wake there. But was happy to kind of be able to continue lacrosse and keep my love for the sport going.
So now that you've done uh, school and you've been able to call yourself a champion, and obviously going to the MCLAs was next up for you guys, and it was short, obviously, but you played the national champion. I mean, so we can at least take some solace in that. But what was that experience like in Texas for you guys?
I mean, I had a blast. Like, quite frankly, like it was pretty difficult to get guys down there. We had some trouble moving exams. It was unfortunate timing right at the end of school. There's a lot going on, so we showed up there with 17 guys. Two got injured in the first 5 minutes, so we played the game with 15 people, but nonetheless, like it was a great time. I'd never been to Austin before, so we made sure to go out and explore the town a little bit. And yeah, like listen, like I said, it was fun to just hang out all together as half a team in Texas for a couple of days. And like you said, it was short, but I still have some great memories from that weekend.
Sure, Logan, for you, what was Texas like for you?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of like we did go down there pretty shorthanded, kind of like knowing that we have to make the best of the cards that were dealt to us. And I think it kind of just like shows the culture of our team that we still had like a ton of fun down there. Just kind of exploring Austin a little bit, hanging out with everyone. Great memories were definitely made. Yeah, it was an awesome experience, even if the cards didn't fall our way the next day.
So when you say memories were made in Austin, what kind of memories are we making in Austin? Like, what was the fun? What was the fun thing that we got to do in Austin?
I think it's called Sixth Street. Is there like downtown strip?
Oh,
Um,
Yeah.
nice.
uh, yeah, we spent a lot of time there.
Awesome. Very cool. It sounds like a great time. I know people say keep Austin weird, but it's like a cool growing city too at the same time, which is awesome.
And I think one more thing to add is just that like that was our first time, making the trip to nationals. So even though, we we ran into a tough team, obviously they went on to win it. So congrats to them. But we're hoping that we kind of took that first step, and then the teams to follow will now feel more comfortable and able to make the trip to nationals going forward.
Getting that experience in, absolutely. So in 2026, right, as we turn the page, Jack, I know you won't be there, but Logan, I know that you have, hopefully there's some chance at some incoming captains. Any commits that you're hearing about? I know we talked to Coach Brett about possibly, shrinking the roster a little bit and starting to set up things a little bit more, a little bit more administrative things that are going to be a little more streamlined. But what's the goals and aspirations for 2026 as we turn the page there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing to note is that every year there's some freshman that's nowhere on our radar and they come in and they're just like the next big thing. I mean, this year we had Tolve and Amato come in where it's like it's pretty hard to run a scouting report on us because the next thing you know, it's like the Kennesaw game. I'm pretty sure Tolve put up like 6 goals and it's like this is his third game that he's came to this year. It's like where this kid come from? So I think that's kind of like the big thing on our radar is just kind of like who's going to be this next unexpected freshman that comes in and is awesome to play with. Um, but then kind of building on that of like aspirations for this year, I think it's just kind of take another step of go to the semis, go to the finals, make it to nationals, and then hopefully take home our first game at nationals. That'd be awesome to keep the program building like that. And I mean, of course, end goal is, I mean, we'd love to win it all, but just kind of keeping the program growing with one step at a time.
And Jack, for you, obviously you won't be down at Winston-Salem next year, but obviously tuning in and cheering on the boys. What's next for the great Jack Church?
Well, I'm back up in New York here. Got a bunch of our buddies moving up here for work, so we're gonna start up in the real world pretty soon. But like I said, as much as I can, I'll be hopping on the live stream to watch Logan and the fellas continue to get it done down in Winston-Salem.
Beautiful. And any prospects for your replacement, and who that might be?
Yeah, I mean Jake Shulkin is a stud. He's been playing a lot the past, or he grew up as a goalie himself, and he's a rising junior. So we're gonna hand the reins over to him and have the utmost confidence in him. He's a brick wall.
All right. All right. So with the brick wall tradition, hopefully continuing in Winston-Salem. Fellas, I mean, what an incredible year. You put on a show and you went all the way to the top of the mountain in Lynchburg, and that was fantastic. And getting to Austin was an incredible feat, obviously, for your program. And we just want to thank you all year for entertaining us and giving us a little bit of your time here as we venture into the off season. So congratulations to both of you.
Thank you guys. No,
Yeah.
it's funny. Everyone like when you guys put on the ALC broadcast for the tournament, everyone's always like, "This is like so legit, like so serious," and it's you guys do a great job. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. It's awesome to go back and watch.
We try to keep it as serious as a heart attack. This is life or death, whether we're talking the ALCs. No, we love making it look professional. That's what we really love doing. And podcast is also part of that too. And we're going to continue to do it. So we'll get you a free stream hopefully next year, Jack, so you can watch it. Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right. And Logan, thanks so much as well. But thank you. Jack Church, Logan Reynolds here on the ALC Sidelines podcast. What a season. 2025 came and went like that. It was unbelievable. We started out this podcast, late in 2024. We had a couple of season previews coming up. Huge special shout out to specifically the president of our league. That's Panchito Ojeda, who ran as president and was the president this year for the 25 season and did a great job in leadership. And he was our first guest too, so he set the bar very high. And we want to thank him for that, and hopefully, as we go forward, he'll still be in a leadership role as we go forward into next year, the ALCs once again, and we'll lead you all the way up to next year's ALC tournament. Season 1 was a blast. We thank you so much. Continue to follow us on Instagram at Atlantic Lacrosse Conference, on X at Atlantic LC, and of course, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, the ALC Sports Network on YouTube. Always putting out great content. I'm sure there'll be a small hiatus, but we will definitely have content for you coming into the season previews as we go through the summer meetings and the like. So please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Also on Spotify as well. You can like and follow us there. So all those social medias, make sure to follow along. Season 2 will come along right before, as quickly as this season ended, the next season will begin. So we're on to 2026. And for my producer, Andrew Musser, I'm Dan Zumpano. We thank you for listening all season long to the ALC Sidelines podcast.